Hey everybody, support for today's episode of Still Untitled comes from Backblaze. Backblaze offers unlimited cloud backups for Macs and PCs for just $5 a month. You can go to backblaze.com/stilluntitled, that's the name of this podcast, so you know where you came from and continue to support the show. And there you can receive a fully featured 15-day free trial on their site. You can play with it, test it out, start protecting yourself from potential bad times today. And also don't forget they also have a business plan. Business backup. If you're already a Backblaze user at home, let your system admin at work know. Again, the website is backblaze.com/stilluntitled, and you can try the business version with more admin tools like using Backblaze groups or protect your home PC, again, just at $5 a month. And thank them for supporting this week's episode.
Well, on that note, welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Norm.
Hey.
Dun, 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 dun. They didn't do that one, actually, did they?
No, I don't know. I don't know if they did. The time has come.
This is a spoiler cast. We have just gotten back from The Last Jedi.
I think actually our first, second, and third showings, respectively.
That's
Indeed.
correct.
So you guys have both seen it before. This is my first time. I've been traveling so much. This is literally, it's Tuesday, and this is the first chance I've had to go see it. I had tickets to see it the other night, but I had to give them to you and Danica.
Yes.
Nice job, Norm.
Thank you. Wonderful.
So as is our way.
Yep.
We're going to first talk about the movie in a general, non-spoiler way.
For a little bit.
For a while.
Yep.
And then we're going to give you a clear demarcation of when you need to turn off the radio if you haven't listened to this yet. And you should absolutely do it for this film, because we're going to talk about stuff that will... I mean, it is spoilers.
You
don't
don't
wanna
want
miss.
spoilers.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Let's just say
yeah.
you don't want spoilers. I will tell you, I did an admirable job of not reading the second half of all those Reddit posts and gliding right past the Twitter things that were saying things. And I literally went into this movie stone cold.
That's amazing, because this past week was the toughest week to be online.
Oh man, I just turned off I had Twitter closed from Wednesday until Friday morning at 9 o'clock when I went to see it.
So let's set up some context.
1 o'clock in the afternoon when I
Okay,
went
let's
to see
set
it.
up some context.
Right, Last Jedi, second
Episode
film,
8.
Episode 8. Ryan Johnson came in and wrote and directed. Ryan Johnson, who wrote and directed all of his films he wrote and directed. Brothers Bloom, Brick, Looper, or his 3 past films. Did he have one more?
That was it.
Those are the
He
ones?
might have had a smaller student thing, but those are the 3 that people know about.
Of wildly different categories. And science fiction. Looper is the one that a lot of people point to as a science fiction film to maybe give them some impression of what type of film that Last Jedi was going to be.
Yep.
I think a lot of people, the concerns going into it because of some of the turnover at Lucasfilm in terms of Colin Trevorrow being taken off of
Han Solo.
the third film, and the Han Solo directors, Chris Miller, Phil Lord being taken off, and then even the Fantastic Four director, like they were afraid that the studio were going to control his vision.
We see signs that seem to indicate disparities between unique directors and the Lucasfilm in terms of how they implement their visions. And Ryan Johnson has exhibited a really unique and amazing vision in his films.
I mean, the first time I saw Brick, we turned around and put it right back on again when it was over. Right, it was one of those films that I saw and I had to go back and watch again because it was the work of a singular. Like it was a singular work that stood on its own in a way that I hadn't. It was a new kind of filmmaking.
Totally.
How do you reconcile that with the most popular franchise, possibly movie franchise of all time, off the heels of J.J. Abrams?
Right, and you know. There's a lot of press about what it's like to make these movies. There's a lot more sort of inside baseball discussion within the standard pop culture about what it's like for Joss Whedon to have to direct a Marvel film and put an action sequence every 20 minutes, 14 characters, 8 films to tease, etc. All these difficulties that directors have to do, and none of us, I think, nobody can possibly imagine the pressures on a director. So I went into this thinking, I wonder how this is going to go.
Well, so
And also we've had 2 years of festering not only theories but anticipation. I don't think it was as much of the build-up as the Force Awakens.
But I mean, Force Awakens ends on an incredible, like a literal cliffhanger.
Yep.
I mean, they're not hanging off the cliff, but they're standing on a cliff.
A genuine cliffhanger.
Mystery boxes within mystery
Yeah,
boxes.
Yeah, so like there's all the threads are dangling from the end of Force Awakens.
And within the 2 years since Force Awakens, it's 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years.
Since Force Awakens came out. In the intervening time, it has been really sort of, I think, culturally accepted that JJ made a very original trilogy continuation. As opposed to the direction Lucas goes in the prequels, right?
Yep.
He stays within both the narrative confines and the aesthetic confines and even the special effects confines. It feels like a very authentic film to the first 3 films, and that was, I think, for me, a terrific bit of fan service.
And
I think that's exactly right the way he did that.
And not easy to achieve. You can call it a fresh coat of paint, but painting something the way we remember in our head, the thing that most people love more than many things in the world, was difficult. So for all its criticisms of being very similar to A New Hope, maybe structurally, even plot point wise, it felt fresh and it was exciting and reassuring.
And yeah, absolutely. And so to follow that act,
Yes.
is again another pressure, a really difficult thing. So how do you take these characters, these stories, and do something interesting with them? And again, when you're representing a giant tentpole for one of the biggest franchises in history.
And also, we would be remiss not to mention that we had a Star Wars movie last year in Rogue One, which exceeded many people's expectations in being
Including mine.
For what a Star Wars movie could be, and so it has to live with that as well. So I think it's time for opinions.
Well, I wanted to say, like watching this movie
In a minute.
it became really clear to me that Rian Johnson loves Star Wars more than anybody else I've ever met, including, like, I love Star Wars. I grew up playing, like, my 5th birthday, I got a Millennium Falcon. I played with Star Wars every day for 5, 6, 7 years. I don't know I can't remember when I stopped playing with Star Wars stuff, but it was a large portion of my childhood. And I watched those movies so many times. I know all the beats. I know,
Yep.
I can recite Empire and A New Hope.
Yep.
And like he came in and took all the things that made me feel like a kid watching Return of the Jedi for the first time in the theaters, and like that. This is how that movie made me feel, which is incredibly powerful.
So let's start with Adam's opinion then. Being the freshest off of viewing, the first viewing.
It's beautiful. It's amazing. I loved it. I think, and I'm going to have to see it a couple more times, seriously, but I think it's the most cinematically beautiful of all the Star Wars movies. And what do we have now, 9 or 11 or something like that?
I mean, yeah.
It is the most cinematic. That shot where Luke is walking away from the flaming door, there's nothing about that doesn't feel grounded in a genuine reality, right? There's no bit about that I felt like I'm looking at a matte painting or I'm looking at a composite shot. I see a man walking away from a burning gate.
It all feels real.
Oh, that was a little spoiler.
Yes,
But just
yeah.
a tiny
Not really.
I also think that, one of the things in retrospect, looking back at George Lucas's legacy, is Lucas and Spielberg were a real pair in their love of cinema. And Scorsese on a different level as a filmmaker, because he's making different kinds of movies. But like Lucas is referencing all sorts of film history in the original trilogy, especially Star Wars, and Johnson is too, and not necessarily the same pieces of film history, which makes it really interesting and feel of a piece, but not like a copy.
It's like an alternative universe. It's as if George Lucas was into these other things instead of Hidden Fortress. And yeah.
So when we get to spoilers, I have a specific one that I recognized, a nod that he was doing to maybe one of the earliest films referenced in the movie.
Could you sum up in 1 or 2 words, or let's say like 3 words, the film walking out of the theaters?
We were talking about this off mic. Then you were saying to Will and I that as fathers, it might have affected us more, and I have to agree. The moments I found most affecting, and still as I think about it, because literally we left the theater 30 minutes ago, as I think about that, I still find quite moving, are the moments between fathers and their children, between parents and their children. This movie is so much about that lineage of the master to the student, of the parent to the child, of the uninitiated to the initiated, and back and forth.
But I mean,
And
all
the
Star
relationship.
Wars is about that. Like
Yes.
Star Wars is always about the relationship between a parent figure and a child.
I also thought that the way in which it sheds the past Star Wars movies is really beautiful. That's not a spoiler. It's just a way in which philosophically this movie definitely steps out from the field and plants a really interesting flag that makes me fascinated about what the third movie is going to
The
go.
planting of the flag is the feeling I left with this movie, in that it makes a statement not only about Star Wars but itself as a film, and I felt like that Rian Johnson had a lot of confidence in what he wrote. Not only the big themes of the Star Wars themes with the Force and the characters, but also the individual character arcs. Upon the second viewing, and maybe even the third, it may become more apparent. The major leads of this film, for me, like Finn, Rey, Luke, Poe, all have really resonant character development.
Luke is a supporting character in this film. I mean, pretty clearly, which is I think part of the reason people are upset with it. But the film is about Kylo, Poe, Finn, and Rey.
Also, can I a shout out? Like there's not a single performance in the film that isn't stellar.
No,
Carrie Fisher, John Boyega.
Hold on, we're getting into spoiler territory. If we're
we'll
not
go
careful
into
here.
some spoiler
Yeah.
territory. Let's say, which of the performances did you find the most affecting?
I felt Mark Hamill's.
Yeah,
I
I
thought
100% agree.
Mark Hamill,
Carrie
like,
Fisher was
Oh my
astounding
goodness.
as well.
I will tell you, I've been reading some of the interviews with Rian Johnson about what it was like to work with Mark Hamill, and I hear between the lines, I'm sensing between the lines that Mark Hamill is a handful.
Be careful. He's going to call you out on Twitter
I
if you say
don't
anything
mind.
bad.
I don't suspect that Mark Hamill minds being a handful. He's an amazing actor. He's built an incredible post-Star Wars career as one of the defining voice actors of the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And well-deserved. And what he brought to this film is incredible. And if that was a handful on set, it was completely worth it.
I'm just thinking of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back when he has the cameo as
not again. The
kids,
cock
the cop
man-
blocker,
yeah,
cop
cock
knocker,
blocker.
sorry,
Cock knocker, yeah.
and he has like a Schwartz type power, and then now he's this.
This is, oh no, not again.
But he clearly is invested in the role and into the making of this film, both in terms of the tongue-in-cheek aspects, the winks and nods, and the emotional impact in a way that. Of the three main actors that came back, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill, I think he does the best.
Well, so like he knows why people love Luke, and he's been invested in owning Luke for a long time, right? The thing that struck me about this film more than anything, especially watching it a couple times, is that it usurps expectations, all of your expectations. No matter what your expectations were coming into this film, they were almost immediately thrown out. You realized immediately you have to throw them out the window.
And they did that gesturally with the very first moment of the film.
Oh well, and it's a thing. It's a thing that happens. It's a thing that's been happening. Like the first time I really was paying attention to this was when Joss Whedon's first Avengers movie came out, and you're like, oh, this isn't the comic book movie I've grown accustomed to, starting with Tim Burton's Batman in 1989 and going forward from there. This is a completely different thing, and it's the meta commentary on what superhero movies are is now being applied by Rian Johnson to Star Wars. And I think it's discomforting to people.
So without going into spoilers, we can acknowledge that there is that this movie is divisive, right? I mean, people out there.
I haven't been paying any attention to the divisiveness. So, should we get to spoilers to talk about that divisiveness?
I'd say because there are some people who may not have seen it yet.
Okay,
I would ask, how would we recommend people align their expectations so that maybe some of the divisiveness comes from the fact that the movie wasn't what they expected. So what can we say like go in without any expectations?
Just
go in,
expect to have fun.
have fun.
Go and have fun. It's a fun movie.
It is a really fun movie. The action sequences are incredibly well directed. You always know where you are in physical space. This is a thing I found actually really surprising. Both Brick and Looper are really they're interesting movies. They have a surprising vantage point from which the director jumps off from. In Brick, it's teenagers talking like hardened Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler characters. In Looper, he takes a movie star and makes them look not like themselves for the entire movie. And neither of those presages how shockingly this sounds weird, and like, I'm not a film director, so this is not my business. But looking at those two movies, I'm so impressed by how completely perfectly Star Wars this movie is.
Mm-hmm.
How it slots right into the canon. The performances are great, and again, those action sequences, you never are lost in terms of, I don't know what's going on. There's too much. There's no mayhem in this editing.
Space battle and on ship, person versus person combat.
Absolutely. And that is, as far as I can tell from watching movies, that's one of the hardest things for directors to do, because not many directors do it well.
Have both of you seen Brothers Bloom?
No, I have not
seen
seen
Brothers
Brothers
Bloom.
Bloom.
I need to watch
I will
it.
say you both are in for a treat.
Ooh.
Because Brothers Bloom, I feel like, is the one both tonally and in terms of the affection and the character development, is the one that's most akin to The Last Jedi.
Ah, okay.
And so I would actually, of those three
Okay.
movies, Brothers Bloom is the one that is best projects what The Last Jedi ends up being.
I'd like to say, I can't stand it when I read some random commentary where they're like, oh, Meryl Streep really brought her A game. And you're like, well, you understand what you're talking about. And so, like, again, I'm not a film director, and so it sounds like I'm an asshole to say Rian Johnson's earlier work didn't make me prepared for how amazingly competent this was, because that's not what I'm saying. I guess it's a beautifully made jewel of a film.
It's more than competent, it's confident.
It is. It's really confident and deservedly. It's fab.
It blew away my expectations. Like, my expectations were,
Which is like all you can hope for.
Yeah, for Empire Strikes Back. Like
high expectations.
Like the dark middle chapter
Yep.
of a new trilogy featuring these new three kids with some good cameos from old friends.
Yep.
And I think we should get into spoiler territory now.
I also would like to say, I've said this on the podcast before. To me, Harrison Ford's performance of Han Solo, I don't care really which one it is.
It doesn't matter. It's fine.
Is the character that taught me in a movie universe as absurd as Star Wars. And it is absurd. Like, it's indefensibly absurd.
Fantasy.
Of course it is. It's fantasy. In a movie universe as absurd as a place like Star Wars, you need a character who makes fun of exactly what's going on in that universe. And that's what Han Solo did. And that's what Poe Dameron does in this movie. And I liked Poe Dameron for the kind of... It's not quite the full-on meta making fun of the film, but Poe Dameron fulfills... what's the actor's name? Oscar Isaac. Oscar Isaac fulfills that kind of Han Solo slot within this film, I think.
So it's interesting you say that, because after I watched it the first time, I came out and I took some notes, and one of the things I said was, look, the thing that's becoming clear in this trilogy is that what we thought were the Luke, Leia, and Han archetypes maybe aren't exactly right. Because Poe Dameron is a little bit of Han and also a little bit of Leia. Because he's gonna, things are gonna happen to him in the next movie.
Yep.
John Boyega is a little bit of Luke and a little bit of Han Solo, and Rey. We'll see where she goes.
And Daisy Ridley. So I had last year at Silicon Valley Comic-Con, I had a lovely dinner with Peter Mayhew, who's a friend, and he said it was such a delight to be on The Force Awakens and watch Daisy Ridley develop from effectively a neophyte actress into a really confident actress. And he said, I just think that the next movie she's going to be amazing. And
yeah,
totally right. She's incredible in this movie and an amazing heroine.
All right.
Last thing, score. The way John Williams used a lot of new music, which is exciting.
Yep.
But also pulls in some real key bits, which we won't talk about right now, but we're going to talk about in a minute, is astounding and lovely and incredibly well done and heart-wrenching and awesome.
It feels like a John Williams score.
Yeah, totally. Okay, spoilers.
All right, here we go.
Turn it off. Go see the movie, please.
Yes, go see the movie. It deserves your 10 or 15 bucks.
They need money, it turns out. Disney is suffering people.
So you've seen it in many formats.
Yeah.
We saw it in the Dolby
Cinema
XD at the Sony Metreon
with the recliners.
And holy shitballs,
Yeah.
was that a great auditory experience and visually stunning experience.
So I saw it in the real IMAX in 3D.
Yeah.
I saw it at the Draft House on 35 mil or the digital version of that.
Sony
in
projector.
3D, Sony projector. And then I saw it in the XD, and the XD far and away was the best presentation. Like the colors on that were astounding. You don't need to see it in 3D. There's a couple of really nice scenes in 3D.
Yeah, I have no interest in 3D.
But I wear glasses, and double glasses suck no matter how nice the glasses are.
You know they have those like double glasses.
Yo, dog, I heard
right.
you like glasses.
Let's talk spoilers.
Spoiler
Okay,
time.
can you tell me? Can we get from the spoilers? I feel like I want to start with what the hell's the internet's problem with this movie? I haven't been paying any attention
Yeah.
at all.
Okay. The gist, and I just started reading yesterday because I was like, wait, people don't like this movie? What the fuck is wrong with people? People don't like this movie because it throws out a lot of what people feel like was the core part of the Force, and Luke's inherent, Luke was the good guy. Luke is a disillusioned, bitter old man who's turned away from the Force, which they feel is against his character.
But that's the central conflict of the film.
And so they don't
I-
like. That's
so-
what they don't like.
They feel conflict about the central conflict of the film. Achievement unlocked.
Adam, let me explain to you something about in the entire
Hold on. I don't think there's one specific reason that people are disliking the film, and many people have different reasons, but they do kind of fall around that their expectations from the last film, wanting answers and having the expectations of one seeing Luke in a triumphant lightsaber battle, right? Like the expectation that we would find out who Snoke is, and that we would find out who Rey's parents are.
Yeah.
Like the mystery boxes that were set up, and for many, sometimes mystery boxes are made not to have satisfying answers. That the mystery is more interesting than the answer. And we talked about how this film subverts many expectations, and I don't think people are happy having those expectations subverted.
I mean, one of the critiques, and my wife actually falls in this category. She thought it was too funny. So then we walked back. We went back and watched bits and pieces of Empire afterwards. I was like, Empire's a funny movie. She's like, you can't defend this movie only in the context of Empire Strikes Back. That's not fair.
And Rian Johnson has done an
was
interview saying, it's important for this film to be funny. And I know we all have the trauma of the prequels being quote unquote made for kids. Guess what? Star Wars is made for kids.
Well, Star Wars is kind of made for everyone.
It's also funny. I love Han Solo putting his hand over 3PO's mouth to shut him up while Han is flirting or negging Leia.
Yeah. or can somebody get this walking carpet out of my way? Right.
Yes.
These are movies. When George Lucas made the original trilogy, he was thinking about 30s serials, which are corny and cheesy, and some of that stuff came through. And the movies are better for it because if you had 2 hours and 22 minutes or whatever this is of unrelenting action at the end of it, you would want to cut yourself like at the end of Age of Ultron.
Okay, so
sorry,
it opens with that. It opens with this.
It opens with a joke. It
joke.
opens with a thing that says your expectations will be subverted with Luke throwing the lightsaber over.
It doesn't open with that. It opens with Poe coming into Hux's ship.
Right. Like I'm on the phone. I'm on hold for Hux.
Yeah.
That's Hux with the
Yes,
H.
yes.
And that is literally like the third line in the film. I think your expectations should be set.
Yeah.
Like then at that moment, that's when you eat your popcorn and have fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. And in each, the original Star Wars films are funny. Empire, the most, I think, technically competent and best directed, and my favorite of the first three films. And it's only my favorite by a small margin because Star Wars, the hunger and grittiness of Star Wars is so perfect.
Well, and the thing about Star Wars is the Imperials. Darth Vader is scary as hell, right? But the stormtroopers and the rest of the Imperials bumble.
Yep.
They're not great.
Yeah.
I mean, they get lucky occasionally.
I still love that Reddit repost that makes it to the front page every few months of a bunch of stormtroopers standing there clean and says stormtroopers after paintball practice.
Yeah. And we see it in this film, the bad strategy of let's send all our TIE fighters after one ship.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So John Scalzi wrote a piece on his blog, his impressions of the film, and he says he doesn't care about plot holes and nitpicking, and there is plenty of nitpicking for fans that we have. Some people thrive on it. It's entire. I mean, if you treat Star Wars like a religion, you're going to do that. Like Star Wars is a myth, right? And you can view this film as this is a story from a long time ago, far, far away, as told by. Now it's stories passed down, and even if you watch it through the lens of this is all told by C-3PO or R2. At the end of it all,
Right.
Then you can say it's all about the characters and the big events. It's not about the little things like, oh, what was this person doing during that event, or why was this time? Yeah,
and the conflict between Rey and Kylo or Ben was really, really lovely. I thought
exceptional.
the way this. Again, if you're listening to this and you haven't watched the film, that's on you.
Too late.
But that central thread of the conflict between Kylo with his good side and Rey with the bad side, of being able to see the totality of the Force, was really lovely. And I can't remember if I said it on the podcast or just in my head, but I did have a suspicion that The Last Jedi meant that Jedi were not an exclusive order, but that the Force was something that anybody could access.
Ben says that in the first. Obi-Wan Kenobi says in the first movie. It flows through all of us. It's between the rock and the stone, and Yoda says in the second movie.
Luke saying that in lesson number one.
Also, yes,
Luke's lesson number one. I mean, if you don't listen to that monologue and see that Rian Johnson understands Star Wars and the Force, then it's not. I mean, then you've misunderstood it, I think.
So a couple things I want to call out. It's the first paper in the Star Wars universe ever witnessed.
And you know what? The books are saved at the end.
Yes, right. I saw that.
So the question is, did Rey take them, or did Luke hide them on the ship when he snuck aboard?
So now I want reference material for those books. They're really lovely. I want to make one.
There's two things.
Yeah.
You see Rey shut that drawer right as she's getting on the chip. Rey shuts the drawer way earlier.
Yep.
Because that was one of the things I was looking for on the third viewing. Is that really the first paper? They didn't have flimsies or something in some other part of the. Wow.
No other paper in the entire.
Cloth. Maybe it's cloth.
Can we talk about? Well, okay.
Let's say it's linen. I'm gonna smack you.
Actually.
Okay, go ahead, Will.
No, I was just gonna say, usurping expectations. Having this movie, having Luke come in and pull his Yoda impersonation when he's training Rey, when he says reach out and she sticks her hand out. First off, Luke tells you exactly what's going to happen in the entire movie from his very first line. He says, this isn't going to end the way you expect it to end.
Right.
This isn't going to go the way you expect it to go. Yeah. What do you want me to do? Walk out in front of the what are they called? The New Republic First Order army with a laser sword and stand down the whole army?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then he goes, literally does that at the end of the movie. He tells Kylo Ren everything you said is wrong. He tells Rey everything she says about the Force is wrong.
Yeah.
And then it all ends up being true. It's all foreshadowed. The whole movie is foreshadowed exquisitely in the same way that Brick and Looper are, frankly.
Interesting.
And same with the other character development, like Rose. When
what a great character!
Great character.
I think
Kelly
she
Marie
gets kind of a short shrift, actually.
I don't disagree, but I thought she's terrifically performed in a really awesome
wonderfully.
character.
She has the winning line of the film is when she says Finn, and she goes, I saved you, dummy. It's not about defeating what you hate. It's about saving what you love.
Well, and that's Rian Johnson quote talking directly to our culture right now.
Yeah,
and she says it earlier.
Beautiful thing.
And she says it, and then she shows it earlier.
Yeah,
in the casino scene when Finn's like, "We got him," and we punched that city in the face, and she lets the and now she's done it.
So Rian Johnson's partner, Karina Longworth, whose podcast, you must remember this, is one of my favorite podcasts, clearly... obviously, he's enmeshed and embedded and infused with film history. I saw one shot that I think comes from a 1927 silent movie called Wings, which has one of the earliest super advanced tracking shots through this bar where you're going over tables, past characters, and it's completely mirrored in the casino, in the opening shot of the casino as you're going past all the characters.
That's fascinating.
Talk about a hive of scum and villainy.
Oh, yeah.
A hive of scum and villainy. And I believe, again, I haven't been reading any of the press about this, but am I right that there's a tremendous number of practical masks, practical animatronics in this film?
Frank Oz's hand was inside Yoda.
And
Porgs were puppets.
And that Yoda was a puppet was completely, I'm getting chills.
Yeah.
That Yoda was a puppet was totally clear to me and perfectly right.
Oh, yeah.
That is... Puppet was beautifully built. It had so much of Yoda in it, and it almost made up for Chewbacca's upper lip.
Too stiff. His stiff upper lip.
Like Chewbacca, I hope that Chewbacca gets his due in the third movie.
Listen, Peter, when he passed on the mantle of Chewie, I'm sure gave a tremendous amounts of advice because, as George Lucas discovered when he tried to do reshoots without Peter Mayhew in the original trilogy, what Peter Mayhew brought to that character is significant and amazing in terms of that body language.
Yeah.
There's one animatronic in the whole costume, and it's just the upper lip.
Yeah.
And what Mayhew did was incredible. And yeah, I hope we see more because I felt like Chewbacca was I wanted more Chewbacca.
New Baca will take time to get used to.
Yeah. So usurping expectations, man. I had something and I completely lost it a minute ago. I'm trying to get it back.
Okay, well let's
ahead.
choose. Let's just talk about Snoke and Kylo Ren. Right?
I thought Snoke was maybe maybe the most beautiful, completely digital character.
Oh, he's digital?
Yeah. Oh,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Snoke, and you saw from Tarkin last year. He had the same kind of sheen. Andy Serkis, great performance. Now,
Andy Serkis,
right.
Andy Serkis, man, Andy, I love you.
So the Emperor, obviously a callback to Episode 6 and the Emperor and Luke, right? And so also Luke throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder. Guess what? He threw the lightsaber over the railing right at the end of Return of the Jedi as well.
Oh, right.
Right.
So he's done that before.
He's done that before, and so go. Sorry, go ahead, Norm. Finish your thought.
The expectation of Kylo Ren becoming good. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people had that in their hearts. It's about a redemption story. Is this about the hero's journey or the villain's journey? It turns out it's a villain's journey, and he is full on villain.
I got it. So this is the thing that I was really interested in. In terms of usurping expectations, all of the Star Warses, except for Rogue One, have at this point been about Skywalkers.
Right.
And one of the main subtexts of this movie is, Rey's a nobody, Finn's a nobody, Poe's presumably nobody. We don't know.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren comes out and tells Rey, "You're nobody" in that final sequence.
Yep.
The negging scene.
Yeah, the negging scene. And
It's horrible.
It was hard. That was hard to watch. But it's Ryan Johnson saying, look, Star Wars can be about more than Skywalkers.
They say,
Well, that's what he's saying with the
great
Force, too.
Skywalker
Yeah.
blood,
Yeah.
sarcastically, facetiously 3 times.
Everyone
yeah.
who mentions the Skywalker blood is mentioning it because it didn't do what they expected it to
Yes.
do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But and that Snoke sequence with the Snoke fight. I mean, Ryan Johnson telegraphs it perfectly. You see the lightsaber moving. Snoke describes his own demise. It's beautiful.
It's really beautiful. What a great little twist that we get to see, that we get to understand Kylo's villainy, what we think is his heroism that turns out to be the extra layer of his
knew it
villainy.
wasn't
and
gonna be
it's
his
not
heroism.
it's not complex. It's more complex than just light or dark. It's not seduced. He is just a bad person.
Well, more interesting than that is it solves what I think is the main problem with all of the Star Wars, except for the first Star Wars, which is that you open on the Tantive 4, you see Darth Vader for the first time. He is clearly just an evil motherfucker, right? Like
Yep,
he is the worst guy in the universe. And then they immediately in the next movie introduce a bigger bad who maybe isn't as big and as bad, and scary, but he is. With Kylo Ren, they've written a character that is truly, truly terrifying, really, really scary. Like he's impulsive, and he has a temper, and he's destructive, and he has no kind of filters, and he's the actual first villain since Darth Vader that's good.
Yes,
that's
that's
a
right.
good villain.
Like the people who are complaining that we're not going to get a Snoke backstory. That Snoke, it was wasted.
Great, that's terrific.
Who cares?
Yeah,
Like,
thank
it's like
you.
just like the Emperor. It wasn't about the Emperor. It was about Vader.
We got an Emperor backstory.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Also, how beautiful was Snoke's chamber? That
red-
those guards?
kabuki theater.
the
of his-
Technicolor dance. Yeah.
I mean, it was like a Vincent Minnelli dance number, and I mean that in the best, highest complimentary fashion.
Yeah.
That lightsaber fight gets better every time. Like I had to go out and take a call this morning right before it, and I was like, I got to get back in time for the lightsabers. I got to get back in time for the lightsabers.
Snoke's samurai red guard. That is a costume. That is an amazing costume. I can't wait to see a whole crap ton of those at Comic-Con.
And they all have different, clearly like martial arts inspired types of weapons. There's the chainsword guy.
I mean,
there's
even down to the chain,
Yep.
doing the bring you towards me like Go-Go Yubari.
it's so good.
Fabulous.
It's so good. And like that turn, the moment when Rey and Kylo are looking at each other after Snoke's dead, she's grabbed the lightsaber, and you're looking at them and you're like, are they going to start fighting now, or are they going to like what's going to happen? Like you don't know what's going to happen. It's a really intense moment, and then they turn back to back and they start fighting all the Snoke's guard.
Really surprising and wonderful,
exceptional.
Also, So a repeated refrain in this film is that Kylo and Rey are connected. We find out that Snoke was connecting them, or seemingly connecting them, but perhaps
or
their
taking credit for connecting them.
Taking credit. There they were connecting with each other and having this movie-long conversation about good versus evil, and literally finding their place in the world. I found it an amazingly wonderful choice that Johnson didn't do any special effect for that conversation. Yeah. There was no, I'm looking at a ghostly apparition. It literally was reverse angles. I am in this space, you are in that space. The audience knows we're talking because of film language that we all understand, and there's nothing that needs to be done to make this better because it's an emotional, not visual moment.
And it made the impact of when they touch and they're in the room together that much more. Where you have
for hitting you.
And when Luke walks walks into the bedroom and sees like that's another like caught the kids.
Caught Han kissing
but
Leia.
The point is made that even after Snoke dies, they have the connection. They see each other when
close.
and so they may be connected, which leads maybe
to an interesting conversation.
She's Adam Driver's daughter.
No, well, maybe her parents aren't really nobodies. Maybe the negging.
I think her parents are nobodies, and I don't think it matters.
I think that's the whole parents are nobodies.
Yeah. I think him saying they died in a pauper's grave on Jakku. Okay, that is kind of the middle of nowhere. That was great.
That was great.
Yeah.
Look, Mark Hamill had the good lines.
Yep.
Totally.
The other thing that I loved was Adam Driver breaking fourth wall, like representing the viewer. Hey, can you see where I am? I can't see where you are. I can just see you, right? Like,
can you put on a shirt?
Yeah, can you put on a shirt? Can you put on a cowl or something? I don't want to do this right now, right? Like those, like that was.
But she's also the one. He's also the one that she confesses to when she has her dark side experience.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I didn't get the dark side experience.
Like, you don't understand why she did that?
I understood why she did that because the plot demanded it, but I don't understand what she got out of it.
It's not about what Luke says is, what we've understood of the Force is that you're either light or you're dark, and you're pulled by one or the other. And for her, it's not about I choose light; it's a spectrum, and she can jump in the dark willingly. She did because she wants the answers, but that doesn't make her bad. And she's still good.
I think that's. I mean, if I had to guess, I would say that's the thing that people have reacted most negatively to is that the rewriting the rules of the Jedi and the Sith and having more gray area.
Okay,
it's fantasy.
I know. But when 280 books, Norm.
It's also very Jesus. Really,
there were 280 books that were wiped away in the extended universe. The petition on Change.org explains exquisitely in detail.
Okay, It's very Buddhist, the idea of erasing your past. It is a very Buddhist idea that our self is a construct. I think that I'm going to have to see it again, but upon the first pass in my brain, Rey going down into the hole and seeing reflections of herself, and that delay, I think what she's looking at is the long tail of her actions always end up with her. Right? So whatever you do, it is still you. You are still at the end of this tale of action. There's something there to scratch the surface of about what the Force means. And, what she says, what she thinks the Force is exactly what most people would say. Oh, it's a power that Jedi have so that they can float shit.
And guess what?
People do what they want. And make people do what they want.
And that's what a lot of people wanted from the film. And that's not the Force. So how about the ending, the big twist, the Luke fight at the end?
I don't think that was a big twist. The fucking name of the movie is The Last Jedi.
No. I'm saying not him dying. I'm saying his fight with Kylo Ren.
His fight with Kylo Ren. So the second he comes out and pulls out that lightsaber, the prop guy in me was like,
Graflex.
How's he holding the Graflex? There's only one Graflex. There's only one Graflex. Yeah. I don't know what the fuck he's holding, but that's not the lightsaber.
And then the makeup guy's like, why is his hair cut? Where do you get why is his hair so brown? And the costume guy's like, where do you get those clothes?
Because they showed the Jedi lightsaber in the flashback with Kylo Ren. When he tries to kill Kylo Ren or thinks about killing Kylo Ren, he has the Jedi lightsaber.
Oh.
He has the green one.
The green one.
He has the green one.
Yeah.
Wait, you mean the one he made?
The one he made at the
from
start
Empire.
of Jedi, at the end of after he lost the Graflex in the Empire with his hand.
So he made that one again.
So he has that. He comes out with the Graflex. He has the trimmed darker beard. He looks about 10 years younger.
Right, I totally missed the beard bit.
Oh, see, I was
I
like,
missed
what?
that entirely.
Why does he look so? Did he clean up?
So-
did he go get a stop at the barber
I
on the
also
way?
loved when they fire all the guns and he comes out and just does that.
That's
and
that's like one motion. That's from a Kurosawa movie.
It is. And so much of the sword fights are from Kurosawa movies.
Yeah.
The cuts to the feet. I don't think there's another Star Wars movie that does that. But if you are an aficionado like I am of good samurai cinema, sword fights are all about the position of the feet.
Yeah.
And I think Sword of Doom is one of the best ever done. But that position of the feet and the scraping away of the salt to see the red earth below, really super looking at
and guess
the
what?
history of Japanese cinema.
Usurped expectation. Like, oh, it's a snow planet. It's going to be like Hoth. Nope,
No.
not so much.
No.
Salt.
That
And
was-
I love that the rebels are all old white dudes.
Well, the guy who
This
says
is-
salt, the one next to him is Gareth Edwards, director of Rogue One.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's
Many
awesome.
cameos.
That's fabulous.
Isn't the guy that's like the general, like the land general guy? He's the guy from Empire, right? The guy with the beard.
I don't know.
That's what I always found it surprising how old many of the rebels are. And boy, did they cut it to the quick by
so-
the end. There's
like,
like half a dozen left.
and I think Leia saying that it's about saving lives, not in chastising Poe at the beginning, is because there are not a lot. It's like very Battlestar Galactica. There are only 400. The whole movie's one long chase scene.
How did they mess this up? Like they win, they took out the command and control structure of the Empire at the end of Jedi.
Yeah.
Right. They killed the Emperor. They killed Darth Vader. The Death Star's blown up. The Executor with all of the top brass in the Imperial Navy's gone. How did the rebels lose the Republic in 20 years?
Go read the comics.
I don't want to read the comics.
Oh, they
It's- I don't think-
they voted Donald Trump in, and everything went
God.
from there.
I don't think that's not the point.
Hey, make the Republic great again,
Hey,
guys.
I will tell you, I still wanted a little more out of Phasma.
I thought
Yeah,
Phasma was
she
the only
was-
one that got short shrift.
It's a great character, and I loved the line,
Was she
"You're
a
only
great
going to be
character?
scum," and he says, "Rebel scum."
And then it
Great.
explodes behind him.
Very Joss
Brilliant.
Whedon, that line.
Yeah.
Very, wonderful.
And so I'll go back to the Luke thing. When he first appears in that room, my impression was immediately like this is just like Rey and Kylo see each other. Maybe this is Luke and Leia just seeing
that
each
didn't
other.
occur to me at all.
And then he winks at C-3PO. I'm like, okay, they're not doing that, and I guess. And then they do it. and it's one big Jedi mind trick.
Yep.
I wondered if that was a late, speaking about the filmmaking, I wonder if that was a late change.
No.
So
Because like, why does he give her the
hair.
Falcon dice?
Okay.
And remember, it's fake dice.
the fake dice.
I know, but
right.
why bother?
Because it's to mislead you to
It's a
to think
misdirection,
it's misdirection. Pure
It's a-
misdirection.
So, side story completely. My good friend Fawn Davis of Fawn Co.
Yeah.
Friend of Tested.
From BattleBots as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. From Mouser Mecha Catbot. His wonderful Mouser Mecha Catbot. Meow, meow. He has a great story from many years. I think even before he worked at ILM, he was working at this place where there was a parking lot nearby. And he decided to go one day. Fawn, you'll tell me if I got the story wrong. He decided to go one day and pulled up to the guy at the thing and said, "No, I'm supposed to park here because of the folks." And the guy was like, "Okay," and he just pulled into a parking space and did that every day for months.
Where was this?
This is I can't even remember. It might have been in Portland or it might have been in San Francisco, but it might have been in Soma. But Fawn keeps pulling into this parking lot, and once he's
supposed to be here.
established it once,
Yeah.
they let him park there and then one day after several months of this, he pulls up to the thing, and now it's the same kind of sweet dumb guy he's been fooling this whole time, and that guy's boss. And that guy's boss is standing there and looks at Fawn and goes, "Hey man, your Jedi mind tricks aren't gonna work anymore."
That's amazing. Confidence.
Oh, man.
Will get you a lot of places.
Can we talk about the last scene?
Yes.
The scene with the kids?
Yep.
The slave kids?
Yes.
Like,
The new resistance.
I mean, presumably. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Exactly what that.
I looked at it as the rise of the Force, the return of the Force to the galaxy, right?
That is it.
Oh, that
last
kid reaches
episode,
out to grab the
he grabs
broom
the
and
broom with
it-
the Force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's that one kid
I
is
think
like
that
the
kid is
next
all
coming.
kids.
It's all kids. It's
Right.
it's the end of Buffy. It's all the potentials getting all the
Yeah.
power.
This
it's
is
not
what the
one
Last
person
Jedi
being,
means,
Yeah.
is that this is the Force's ability to be used for good is no longer in the hands of a single people who are training each
It's
other.
a diaspora of the Force.
Right.
I wonder, I wonder if if it's the Last Jedi, because now they're gonna do the Silent J and it's gonna be a Jedi situation going forward.
Wah, wah. Way to kill the conversation. Well, I think we're out of time. There's a lot more to think about.
Can I hit the John Williams stuff real quick?
Yes.
Yes.
They used Leia's scene. We didn't talk about the Leia death scene at all.
So-
Like when she did
Which-
die, but
yeah.
we thought she did.
Yeah, which I found really beautiful and intense. And it was the first time you saw actually, it's one of the very first times you saw real world physics happening on an object within the Star Wars universe, where you see her get cold and icy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the vacuum of
then
space.
just a little bit of force will give
Yep.
you the momentum to Mary Poppins all the way down there.
They played Leia's theme from Return of the Jedi from the Ewok village
I
with that.
smelled that. And
When
it's lovely.
they were in the Millennium Falcon fight on the mineral planet at the end, they played the theme from John Williams used the theme from the TIE Fighter escape from the original Death Star in Star
Yep.
Wars. When Luke died, when Luke became one with the Force at the end,
Yeah.
he stared at two suns
Yep.
in the sunset.
Yes,
and
yes.
they played the Luke's intro theme from Tatooine in original Star Wars.
There's one shot I wanted in this movie, which is when the Millennium Falcon shows up to help during the last battle. I wanted the first shot of the Falcon to be Chewie in the cockpit. I realized that would have just that
would've
one.
connected
Sorry,
it.
Ryan. I want that one little piece of like, oh, Chewie, man.
Chewbacca.
Yeah.
Princess Leia got the Chewbacca hug that she missed at the end
Yes.
of Force
Get
Awakens.
his full nuzzle.
Yeah.
and Poe got a I know.
Yeah.
Oh, Poe did get an I know.
Or he gave the I know.
Wow.
So we'll see where that goes.
Really,
I don't know.
really, really deeply satisfying. I'm gonna go see it again. I'm gonna take my kids to see it. My nephews and nieces will yeah.
I
And
think
we'll-
it's a
we'll do
denser
another
movie
discussion
than
about
most
it.
people who.
I mean, the only thing that kind of like I thought that they did a really good job giving the 4 core characters of the new franchise arcs, but the Finn and Rose arc through the casino, like, I guess it's important because you have to set the stage for the slave kids and all that stuff. But that was the part that felt like maybe.
There's it's funny when she says I want to do something to this terrible beautiful place.
Yeah.
Right. That I felt like again. There's so much quoting of Casablanca.
right.
In those scenes, there's like
And it
there's
feels-
easily
yeah.
half a dozen Casablanca references.
Yeah,
in
that's
there.
absolutely right.
demands multiple viewings.
It does. So listen, I know that Tony Joe, you're not doing Every Frame of Painting anymore. Long live Every Frame of Painting. But I know you're also doing some other stuff. And boy, would I love to see Tony's breakdown of the film history extant in
my
this
God.
movie.
Or pick the thing that's most interesting to him.
Pick things most interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, I'll finish where we started. I think it's the most beautiful of the Star Wars movies. There were so many shots that took my breath away, and I was like, oh my God, I want more. I want more time to take this shot, this scene, this thing
God,
in.
we didn't talk about Benicio.
Oh my gosh! Right, you were saying in the cab on the way back that Benicio Del Toro gets the two best cameos within franchise films
I mean,
this year.
look, he's the collector, and
This-
he's like an unnamed smuggler, gambler, thief,
He's great.
hacker. He's really
terrific.
good. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
These thoughts will be ongoing.
Was that Justin Theroux?
It was Justin Theroux as the
Theroux
code breaker.
with the
As the
rose
code
thing,
breaker.
playing the
Really?
gambler.
I want to see more of him too.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
was thinking-
Please post in the
we talk
comments
about Laura
your
Dern?
thoughts.
Laura Dern was
Laura
great,
Dern.
too.
Yep. Yep.
That hyperspace crash.
Oh, yes.
Like,
Oh,
why
the
don't
sound.
they just do that all the time?
hyperspace
And
crash
the
was
cut to silence.
Beautiful, so amazingly
Perfect
beautiful.
opportunity for someone in the theater to go, oh shit. Happen in every screening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay. I'm done.
that's as much as we can cover right
sorry
now.
your recliners didn't recline,
It's
guys.
almost. I guess we're not going to do one next week, so Christmas will be off.
Yes, we'll be off at Christmas, but we'll be hopefully back. We'll be back in the new year.
Back in the
Okay.
new year.
Yeah.
So anything on the site in this interim?
Yes, we're posting our favorite things all
Right.
next week and end the year. So stay tuned for that. And then in the new year, we'll have some stuff we've queued up.
Cool.
Visit some studios and maybe some one-day builds that are in the can.
Absolutely.
Ooh. Cool. Have a good holiday, everybody. Happy
Merry
New Year.
holidays, Christmas, all your families, and love to everybody. And we'll see you guys in the new year.
Thanks for watching us, guys.
Cheers.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Still Untitled. I think that's our final episode of the year. Now, if you could help us, we would love for you to continue supporting the show, not just by subscribing, but by filling out a short survey. We have a link on the podcast notes page, in addition to the description below. Click that link, fill out the short survey. It'll take just a couple minutes. We don't need your email address. We won't send you spam. It's not for ads. It's to let us know what you like about Tested, and so we can help plan the content for next year and beyond. The link is in the description. Thanks for listening. Happy holidays, and we'll see you next year.